Is it a fact of revelation?
Of course it is.
So it's a fact of revelation that no one knows with absolute certainty until 1950 years after.
No, that's not true. The people who witnessed it certainly with absolute certainty.
But you don't have any evidence that they existed, do you?
Of course I do.
Where?
In the fact that there was a tradition passed on down.
You say there was a tradition passed on down, you can't show us where it is.
You admit there was a tradition passed on down, Mr. White. You simply think the tradition is not founded in fact, but you admit there's a tradition.
No, I don't.
You don't.
Well, that was a question. Now it's your turn, so I guess we can go back.
Until 1950, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there was no ancient tradition that has any type of meaningful historical basis to it, that there were eyewitnesses. You paralleled it with the resurrection of Jesus Christ, Jerry. Let's ask ourselves the question. The resurrection of Jesus Christ, who were the eyewitnesses? Did they write? Did they preach? Do we have evidence of this outside of the New Testament? The answer to all of these is yes. Now we ask the question about this alleged tradition of eyewitnesses, the assumption. Did they write? No. Did they preach? No. Does anyone outside of the Christian church or even in the Christian church ever make reference to this in the first half millennium? No. Yes. There is no parallel. No, show it to me.
Well, that was his turn to ask you questions. So maybe you get that question in.
Well, I was answering his question.
All right. Mr. White, you said that we can go back and demonstrate. You said there's a fundamental difference here because we can go back and we can demonstrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. How, Mr. White? How can you demonstrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ?
Well, the same way the Christian people have been doing it for a very long time, and that is you can point to the eyewitnesses who wrote, who preached, who died for their faith. They left us a text that is the greatest and most accurate text of any ancient document that exists in all the world. And the very fact they went out and changed the world, and that this is even recorded for us in secular materials. I'm not making any point. I'm pointing out to you that the basis upon which we know the resurrection is not the authority of the modern Roman Catholic Church.
You have the authority. Now, see, you're putting an equivocation there. It's not the modern Roman Catholic Church.
Yes.
You believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ on the authority of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Is that not correct?
And Paul and numerous other people. Not just that, yes.
Okay. How do you know that Matthew wrote that gospel?
Well, first of all, this is a very interesting statement because it goes to the issue of sola scriptura, the issue of the canon, and it is interesting to me that this question continues being asked over and over again when
I'm going to go on asking until I get a coherent answer.
Because, first of all, whether Mark or whether Matthew wrote Matthew, and as you know, the Gospel of Matthew does not say that, right, is not relevant to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and you know that.
But the fact is, the only medium that you have, the point I'm trying to make, Mr. White, for the audience's sake, is that the only way you know you have documents coming from eyewitnesses is that church fathers said this comes from an apostle, this comes from an apostolic associate, Mark comes from Peter's associate and secretary, Luke is written by Paul's companion, John is written by the apostle John, and that same basis in which you, don't misunderstand my question, folks, I accept Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, says every believing Catholic, as a valid testimony to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I'm not trying to sow seeds of skepticism in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I'm simply trying to say, if you believe in that resurrection, by the very same principles, you have to believe in the other things the apostles taught.
Is that a question?
Yes.
My response is, they didn't teach the doctrine you're trying to parallel. You haven't provided us with any historical evidence. You are assuming the existence of historical evidence, and I keep asking you, Mr. Matitix, if you say that the apostles taught this, are you saying that the apostles taught this?
Yes, I am.
Then show me some evidence. The passage that you cited to me in 2 Thessalonians says that we are to hold to the tradition that was taught to us by word of mouth or by letter. That passage says that those traditions had already been taught to all Thessalonians. This wasn't any secret thing. Where is the evidence, Mr. Matitix? There isn't any evidence. Your own scholars have it.
You don't have the original documents the apostles wrote.
No,
you have a tradition that the documents you hold in your hand, that you hold the New Testament, are faithfully transcribed and transmitted copies of the original autographs. Yes, you do.
No, sir, that is untrue.
All you have is the testimony of the church that the documents you have now do indeed come from the apostles.
You mean we don't have the documents themselves?
You don't have the documents they wrote. You have
The
copies.
validity of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, sir, is not based upon someone who lived 200 or 300 years later.
It's based upon the fact that you've been given a patrimony. You've been given something that says this comes from the apostles. Now,
I have been given the scriptures, sir.
if you're going to... You're arguing in circles.
No, I'm not.
You don't know if they're scriptures if the people who tell you they're scriptures are untrustworthy.
Mr.
Now,
Johnson.
those same people also give traditions saying the apostles taught special things about Mary.
Did not.
If you impeach those witnesses and say, those church fathers don't know what the heck they're talking about, you have no way of knowing that they're giving you a Bible you can trust.
Athanasius gave
Be
me
fair.
Athanasius gave me the same canon of the New Testament I have. Show me one place where he talks about the assumption of Mary or queenly coronation.
I don't have to.
How about in the councils? Hippo, Carthage. I don't want.
Mr. White,
You're making the assertion that they taught these same things, and I'm undercutting my own self. They didn't teach
I
these
don't
same
have
things.
to.
Mr.
I don't
Martinez.
have to demonstrate that every single church father taught every single thing.
How about just one of them?
Anybody that wants can pick up any edition, even by a Protestant like J.N.D. Kelly, whom Mr. White, you can get published by Oxford University Press, the early Christian fathers, later Christian fathers, and you will find testimony by the early Christian fathers, the same ones who testify to the apostolic origins and authorship of these books. You will hear them talking, saying things about Mary, for that matter, about the Eucharist, about baptism, that Mr. White rejects. That is my point.
That is
They teach Catholic.
Are you
things.
saying that they're teaching the queenly coronation of Mary and bodily assumption, which
Not in the detail that it's
Okay,
taught
thank
today,
you.
of course not. Any more than they taught the deity of Christ in the way that it was defined centuries after them.
That is untrue. They did teach the deity of Christ in very plainless and clear. No clarity.
Okay, now we'll have our closing first by Mr. White.
And we have audience questions after this. This could be interesting. My friends, we've been here a long time and we've argued a lot of things. I'm not going to give you 3 minutes. I'm not going to give you any statements written out or anything else at this point. I just want to invite you to think with me. At the beginning, I asked you to examine the arguments placed before you. Do they assume things not in evidence? Are they circular? Are they based upon authority claims, such as the authority claims made by the Roman Catholic Church? I asked you to examine the biblical argumentation. Does it partake of the original meanings of the words, or does it read meanings into words that were never a part of what the original authors said? I asked you to examine all these things. And I honestly believe that if you will do so, outside of the heat of battle, maybe tomorrow in your opportunity to review some of these things, that the truth will be evident to you.